The rope slipped from Daniel Carter's gloved hands and fell into the wet soil with a dull, final sound. He stood there longer than necessary, staring at it as if the ground had stolen something from him. Morning light hovered weakly over the Indiana fields, gray and undecided, matching the weight in his chest. Nothing was broken, and yet nothing felt whole. Daniel had been awake since before dawn. Like always, the routine hadn't changed, the effort hadn't softened. But productivity, real progress, kept slipping through his fingers. His days were full, crowded with motion, yet strangely empty of completion. Discipline remained, but direction had quietly abandoned him. He lifted his eyes toward the wide, curved path, stretching from the barn toward the far fence line. Mist rested low across it, blurring where it bent and disappeared. He used to like that path. It reminded him that leadership was a series of steady decisions, not sudden leaps. Today, it only reminded him how unclear everything felt. Beyond the path stood the old oak tree, thick and unmoved by seasons. It had outlived storms, droughts, and men with better plans than patience. Daniel swallowed hard. Stability used to come naturally to him. Now, even that felt borrowed. A cold wind shifted across the field, brushing against his jacket like a quiet warning. He tightened his grip on the rope again, but something inside him resisted, not from weakness, but from exhaustion born of misalignment. He was working harder than ever and accomplishing less than he ever had. Daniel closed his eyes for a brief moment, longer than pride would usually allow. Somewhere beneath the noise of unfinished tasks and postponed rest, a deeper truth stirred. This wasn't a failure of effort, it was a failure of focus. But it didn't start there. We must go back a little in time. If this story resonates with you, subscribe now. This channel is for men seeking clarity, purpose, and steady leadership. Through stories that strengthen focus, restore peace, and realign what life has slowly pulled out of order. Years earlier, Daniel Carter's mornings carried a different weight. Back then, dawn arrived with purpose. The sun rose slow and honest over the Indiana farmland, spilling light across the fields like a promise kept. Daniel would step onto the porch, breathe in the cool air, and feel grounded, not because life was easy, but because it was clear. He believed in discipline shaped by direction. Work mattered, but so did intention. Every task belonged to something larger than itself. Daniel had learned that rhythm from his father, who taught him that stewardship wasn't ownership, it was responsibility carried with humility. The land answers to order, his father used to say, but the man must answer to purpose. After marrying Emily, Daniel brought that same clarity into their shared life. They weren't chasing expansion. They were building stability, a modest home, honest work, steady leadership. He planned his days carefully, not obsessively, leaving room for adjustment and grace. Back then, productivity followed naturally, not because Daniel rushed, but because he focused. He repaired fences before they failed. He addressed small problems before they demanded big sacrifices. His long-term vision guided his decisions, even when no one was watching. Some mornings, mist rolled in so thick it softened the edges of the fields. Daniel would walk the curved path toward the barn, trusting that clarity would return as he moved forward, and it always did. The old oak tree at the edge of the land stood as a quiet marker of consistency. Seasons changed. Responsibilities grew. But Daniel's direction stayed firm. Over time, though, life added weight. More obligations, more voices, more expectations. And without noticing when it happened, Daniel stopped choosing his rhythm. He kept the discipline, but he lost the pause. Purpose thinned, not from neglect, but from overload. His days filled up before his direction could catch up, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, Clarity began to slip. Daniel Carter never dreamed loudly. His ambition was shaped more by stewardship than expansion, more by responsibility than recognition. He didn't want to be the biggest operation in the county. He wanted to be a man whose life made sense, whose work supported his family, whose presence offered stability, and whose leadership didn't require explanation. His long-term vision was simple but demanding: order instead of chaos, progress without panic, productivity that left room for peace. One evening, after another day that felt heavy despite honest effort, Daniel walked down the curved path toward the pond at the far edge of the property. The air was still, the kind of quiet that invites reflection rather than answers. The water lay calm, reflecting the sky without distortion. He sat on a flat stone near the edge, removing his working gloves and placing them beside him like a deliberate pause. The gloves represented discipline, years of showing up, of enduring discomfort without complaint. But discipline alone, he was beginning to realize, was no longer enough. Daniel bowed his head slightly, not in performance, not in desperation, just in sincerity. A quiet prayer formed, not for more strength, not for faster results, but for clarity. He asked for discernment, for insight that could restore focus and direction. The response did not arrive as a voice. It arrived as an uncomfortable truth, settling into his thoughts with calm authority. You are doing many things well, but few things intentionally. That realization carried weight. Emotional maturity doesn't shield a man from correction. It prepares him to receive it. Daniel understood that leadership requires periodic realignment, not stubborn endurance. The dream didn't change. The path didn't disappear. But the way forward would require something smaller than ambition and stronger than effort. It would require a return to intention. The season turned colder, and with it came resistance. Frozen soil refused the plow, forcing Daniel to lean harder into every pass. The rope dragged heavier across the ground, scraping against ice and dirt alike. Each task demanded more effort than it should have, and still the days ended unfinished. At first, Daniel answered the tension the only way he knew how, by pushing harder. He rose earlier. He stayed later. He skipped pauses he once respected. Discipline tightened its grip, but direction did not follow. Productivity, instead of improving, fractured. His thoughts scattered, decisions multiplied. Focus thinned under the weight of constant motion. What once felt purposeful now felt reactive. One morning, as a sharp wind cut across the fields, Daniel noticed a section of fence sagging inward. His stomach tightened. He had repaired it only weeks ago, or at least he thought he had. The realization landed quietly but firmly. He could no longer trust his own memory of progress. Inner strength does not always collapse loudly. Sometimes it erodes through fatigue and unexamined persistence. That night, Daniel sat alone at the kitchen table, hands resting flat on the wood. The house was silent, but his mind was not. His clarity slipped like frost on winter boards, thin, dangerous, and easy to miss until it caused a fall. Discipline was no longer enough without direction. For the first time in years, Daniel questioned not his ability, but his alignment. He was responsible, consistent, and committed. Yet something essential was missing, and the cost of ignoring it was growing. Pressure rarely arrives alone. As Daniel's productivity slowed, attention followed. A local supplier named Mark Reynolds began stopping by more often, leaning against the barn door with practiced ease, eyes always scanning for opportunity. Mark spoke in confident shortcuts. He admired speed, expansion, and leverage. He praised Daniel's work ethic, then quietly questioned his pace. "You could move faster," Mark said one afternoon, glancing toward the fields. "A few adjustments, looser timelines, flexible numbers, everyone does it." The words sounded reasonable, strategic even. Mark framed compromise as efficiency, urgency as leadership. And for a moment, Daniel felt the pull, because productivity failure makes temptation sound practical. The pressure escalated. First, Mark suggested pushing materials before payment cleared. Then, he encouraged bypassing a standard inspection. Just this once. Each proposal came wrapped in assurance, always promising relief without consequence. Daniel stood near the fence line as Mark spoke, one hand resting on a solid post. The fence represented more than property. It marked boundaries earned through consistency and integrity. Daniel understood that once a boundary bends, it rarely straightens on its own, saying no cost him. Mark's tone cooled, opportunities narrowed, word traveled faster than explanation, and for a season, Daniel fell further behind, not because of laziness, but because integrity demands patience. Leadership is tested most when compromise appears efficient. Daniel chose responsibility over relief, even as uncertainty pressed harder. He did not defend himself loudly. He did not retaliate. He simply held his ground and waited. Mark Reynolds moved quickly once Daniel stepped aside. He expanded contracts, stretched credit, and promised timelines that impressed from a distance. From the outside, it looked like momentum, like decisive action rewarded by opportunity. But speed without structure always demands payment. By late spring, whispers began circulating. Deliveries missed their marks. Payments arrived late or not at all. Mark's operation, built on leverage rather than stewardship, began to strain under its own ambition. Daniel heard the news without reaction. He did not watch closely, nor did he take comfort in the unraveling. Leadership grounded in integrity does not celebrate collapse, it learns from it. Soon, the collapse became visible. One morning, Daniel passed a familiar property and noticed equipment sitting idle, fences unattended, paths overgrown. No storm had destroyed it. No enemy had attacked it. It had simply outpaced its character. Mark's downfall did not arrive through confrontation, but through consequence. The very shortcuts he praised became the fractures that ended him. Daniel returned home that evening and stood near the old oak tree. Its branches moved slowly in the breeze, unhurried, unchanged by seasons of trend or urgency. The insight settled quietly, solid and undeniable. Character outlasts cleverness. Integrity had cost Daniel time, but it had preserved his foundation. And now, space was opening for restoration. The breakthrough did not arrive with noise. It came one morning after a night of heavy rain, when the storm finally released its grip on the land. Daniel stepped outside as the clouds thinned, boots sinking slightly into softened earth. The air felt washed clean, lighter somehow, as if the fields themselves had exhaled. At the far edge of the property, the horizon opened into gold. Sunlight broke through in a narrow band first, then widened, spilling across the fields with quiet authority. The storm clouds retreated without argument. A gentle wind shift moved through the oak tree, its leaves whispering instead of groaning. Daniel stopped walking. Nearby, a young calf that had limped for days stood calmly, weight steady, injury no longer visible. The sight held him longer than expected. Healing had taken place without his supervision, without urgency, only time and care. In that stillness, clarity returned, not as instruction, as alignment. Daniel saw it plainly now. His productivity had never been restored by force, only by order. The simple routine he had begun, intentional mornings, protected focus, clear boundaries, had reshaped more than his schedule. It had reshaped his peace. He felt no rush to move, no need to prove anything. The insight settled deep, firm and reassuring. God never arrives late. What felt like delay had been preparation. What felt like pressure had been correction. The storm had not come to destroy, but to realign. Daniel breathed in slowly, gratitude forming without words. The land stood ready again, so did he. Daniel never returned to the chaos he once called productivity. He kept the routine simple and guarded it with quiet discipline. Mornings began with intention, decisions followed direction. Work ended with enough strength left for presence. His leadership grew steadier, not louder. His life, clearer, not larger. The wide curved path no longer felt uncertain. It felt honest. The fence line stood firm, repaired and respected, and each sunrise carried renewed purpose instead of pressure. He learned what many men only understand too late. Leadership begins the moment a man chooses integrity over urgency. Discipline without direction drains the soul, but purpose restores it. Those who plant consistency harvest clarity. And often, God strengthens a man before he blesses him. Peace did not come from doing less. It came from doing what mattered, on purpose. If this story spoke to you, it's because somewhere in your own life, effort has been outrunning clarity. Maybe you've been disciplined, responsible, consistent, yet still feeling behind. Maybe your days are full, but your peace feels thin. Let this be your reminder. Productivity is not about doing more, but about doing what matters with intention. There are seasons when God slows a man down, not to punish him, but to realign him. When focus is restored, strength returns. When direction becomes clear, peace follows. If you want more stories like this, stories about leadership, purpose, discipline, and quiet spiritual growth, subscribe to this channel. Each week, you'll find narratives designed to sharpen your focus, strengthen your character, and restore clarity where life has grown noisy. And don't leave yet. The next video on your screen continues this journey. Another story where a small decision changes everything. Watch it now and let it meet you exactly where you are.